Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Opposition leader rejects bulk of his salary increase as Prime Minister blasts their criticisms. Crowd gathers in protest as outcry against parliamentarians' pay hike intensifies. And later in sports, Link Cup finalists to be decided this afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters and here are the details. Opposition leader Mark Golding says he will only be accepting 20% of the increase, which was announced by Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark in the House of Representatives earlier this week. This is in line with the increase that the majority of the public sector has received following the compensation review program by the government. Speaking at a PNP conference a short while ago, Mr. Golding said that the increases for the public directorate is basically a slap in the face of other public sector workers.
As leader of the opposition, I must lead by example at a time like this. I will therefore redirect the bulk of the 240+% increase in my pay and retain 20% of that increase and contribute the rest to persons in need and other worthy causes. I intend to do this until the outstanding grouses affecting the public sector workers arising out of the restructuring have been satisfactorily addressed.
The opposition has also called for a delay in the implementation of the salary increases for the political directorate. The call was made by opposition spokesman on finance, Julian Robinson.
The second thing we are calling for is a reconsideration of the alignment of a minister to be $1 above the highest scale in the permanent secretary's band. We are saying that that alignment should be more in the middle of the band. So right now it reflects $1 above the 23 million. It should be lower, somewhere in the middle, in the range of probably the mid-range of probably about 19 to 20. That would obviously necessitate a downward adjustment in all the other salaries because, for example, a member of parliament earns a percentage of what a cabinet minister earns. So our position.
Shameful, outrageous, and vulgar were just some of the words used by the scores of angry Jamaicans who showed up at the Emancipation Park in St. Andrew this morning, protesting the significant salary increases given to the political directorate. Our reporter Jamaica Maitland was there.
We want justice! We want justice! We want justice! We want justice!
No, not even the sweltering heat could stop the angry protesters from shouting out their disgust and disapproval for what they describe as unjust and inequitable salary increases given to the political directorate. Now, I'm at the Emancipation Park where just about a handful of people are here right now, and it's close to midday. However, earlier this morning when the protest had started, there were just a few. And at about 9 o'clock, that number ballooned into about 100 people, with hundreds more honking in solidarity for the gathering.
This level of increase is shameful, disgraceful, and unacceptable. And when it seems as if it is carefully orchestrated, that it goes into the matter of being immoral. I think that they need to roll it back in sensitivity to our present economic plight and as an identity with persons who are suffering and for whom they can't afford to give the level of increases that they deserve.
Leaders of this country, you need to roll back this unfair, evil increase. It is a dagger in the heart of every teacher that you stood up and said to us. You had us in a meeting with our union all day, such, and you said to us, this is the best deal that you could have offered us. And we are saying to you, you lied to us. If you can take this increase for yourself, you lied to us, and we are saying, do better, care about this country.
As news of the protest spreads online, we believe that more people are expected to make their way here to the Emancipation Park. And there are those who say they will be coming here in their lunch break. Notably, no one or no group has claimed responsibility for the gathering, but we did overhear plans for another demonstration that would likely be even bigger and has more impact.
We don't want a 9-day wonder.
No!
We don't want a 9-day wonder.
Blow your eye!
Reporting from the Emancipation Park, I'm Jamaica Maitland for TVJ News.
In the meantime, Prime Minister Andrew Holness has fired back at the criticisms being leveled at his administration in the wake of the hefty salary increases the politicians have given themselves.
According to Prime Minister Andrew Holness, the criticism and condemnation in response to the announced salary increase for politicians have not come as a surprise. Insisting that the over 200% increase in some parliamentarians' salary is part of the planned improvement for government workers, he argues that progressive action always garners unjustified criticism.
Anytime you try to do something different, anytime you try to take on those things that have fundamentally defined our failures as a country, there is a choir that comes out very loudly to say, leave things as they were.
According to the Prime Minister, great thought was put into the salary discussion before a decision was made.
It's not yesterday that the country, including those who are critical, have been calling for a compensation review. Not yesterday, it's a long time. But there is a false sense being created that somehow only one class of people have gotten increases.
Despite initially stating that they had no issue with the increase announced on Tuesday, the opposition has since joined the list of groups demanding a rollback or at least a review of the increases. However, Mr. Holness has blasted the opposition, suggesting that they have no grounds to criticize the decision.
None of those persons who are being very critical of this government, that have taken on the great challenges that have dogged us as a nation, whether it is in education, whether it is in discipline in public transportation, whether it is low pay to the civil service, whether it is poor infrastructure, lack of housing, none of them can point to anything that they have done that can come close to what this government has done.
The Prime Minister was speaking at the floral tribute in honor of the 100th memorial of the birth of former Prime Minister Hugh Shearer.
And it's time for a break here on the Midday News, but stay with us, more stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. As Jamaica embarks on the journey to become a republic, it has initiated a series of public education. During a recent town hall meeting in Mandeville, residents added their voice to the conversation. More in this report.
A separation of the executive from the legislature, a non-executive president, and well-informed parliamentary committees that will make decisions on behalf of the Jamaican people are some of the fundamental changes residents of Manchester are calling for when Jamaica become a republic. One resident shared his concerns.
My question was about the committee announcing that they had reached a consensus on the form that the presidency should take after we become a republic. And my question was that, given that they have gotten such a substantial pushback since the announcement, wasn't it premature? The answers to that question that came afterward didn't make it that much clearer because, if I remember correctly, one of the committee members said that there was no consensus. And I subsequently read an online article that said the very opposite.
He says he hopes consultations will continue and the views of the public will be taken into consideration. There is also a call for young people to be encouraged to participate in a more meaningful way in the ongoing discussions on the matter. One youth advocate believes the country's demographic suggests that young people will be at the heart of the proposed changes and therefore need to be engaged in a more meaningful way in the discussions.
I would love to see a participatory democracy, not only us signing a ballot or participating in the referendum, but us, the layman, the typical Jamaican, being a part of the decision making on the country too, because the decisions that are made in the government really affects us and really impacts our lives. The reality is not much of my young peers are interested in this, and that's a sad reality of our governance throughout the years. But I hope that this committee and this process will actually call for the youth.
Another resident says there needs to be clarification on whether constitutional reform and a republic status are separate things or twin concepts. In the meantime, there are warnings for the committee not to rush the process, but to patiently continue to engage the Jamaican public to allow it to make educated, informed decisions on the matter.
I don't think we should be rushing this thing too much. We should take our very own time to look at exactly what are the merits and demerits of these changes that we are trying to contemplate and allow them to take their course in a timely way.
Carrie and Simpson for TVJ News.
The National Water Commission, NWC, will be embarking on a project to better supply water for up to 8,000 people in the Paradise Norwood area of St. James. MP for Northwest St. James, Dr. Horace Chang, and Portfolio Minister Matthew Samuda gave the update during a tour of facilities on a Thursday. The project will include improving the pressure from 2 water tanks in the area totaling 400,000 gallons. Dr. Chang adds that the current water distribution system is informal.
I will pay for the water. What they want is access and connection to homes. While they have some here, it is all informal and, and it's always unreliable. They are taking from Montagues, some other areas where they met their line. It not only is unreliable for them, but it also renders the flow up further up and to Salt Spring and other areas, sometimes impaired.
And it's time for the Business Minute. Here's Hal Shane Burke.
The business process outsourcing BPO sector has seen a more than 40% increase in employment since the pandemic. Industry Minister Orbin Hill says the sector now employs more than 60,000 people.
We didn't stop growing right through that pandemic. That's outstanding. Probably the only industry that kept doing that. Even outstanding other service industry, tourism, because travel had to be suspended, had to take a dip. So while Jamaica took a 10% dip in growth in GDP, the global services industry just kept on growing.
He says there are 85 BPO operators in the country, a 30% increase over 2019. Further afield, UK's Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says he wants to ensure Russia pays a price for the war in Ukraine after announcing new sanctions targeting Russian exports. Among the new sanctions is diamond imports to the United Kingdom. The Russian diamond industry was worth $4 billion in exports in 2021. Russian origin copper, aluminum and nickel imports will also be blocked on the legislation to be introduced later this year. Mr. Sunak says he hopes other countries would follow suit. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Hal Shane Burke.
Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, a senior cabinet member in the Bahamas is advocating for persons convicted of rape charges to be castrated or even executed. Environment and Natural Resources Minister Vaughn Miller says he wishes to register his anger against persons who commit such violent, reprehensible and detestable acts. He acknowledged that he is rather extreme in his mindset on the matter, admitting that he's from the old school. Mr. Miller was responding to police concerns about sexual assaults in Bacardi Road area in his Golden Isles constituency, with the latest incident occurring last weekend. A woman was reportedly abducted, robbed and sexually assaulted. Police say they have since arrested a suspect. On the international scene, an 88-year-old Australian doctor held captive by Islamic extremists in West Africa for more than 7 years has been freed and has returned to Australia. Ken Elliott is safe and well and was reunited with his wife and their children Thursday night. His safe release was announced by Australia's Foreign Minister Penny Wong. Mr. Elliott and his wife Joycelyn were kidnapped in Burkina Faso, where they had run a medical clinic for 4 decades. She was released 3 weeks later. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Carrie Simpson.
And we head to a quick break. When we come back, Jermaine Brown will have your midday sports report.